Okay, thank you, Fabia and Dara, for hosting the meeting. And it's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for the opportunity to be here and present my PhD work on real-time implementation of a DAS-integrated earthquake early warning algorithm. So here first, I promise only just one brief introduction to DAS, since most of you have already seen too many introduction slides like this. So DAS, distributed acoustic sensing, is a technology that can turn a fiber optic cable into a chain of seismic sensors. So we have the so-called DAS interrogation unit or DAS interrogator. It's a box with a computer and a laser. The box, you can attach it to one side of a dark fiber, and it will shoot lasers into the fiber. So the computer inside the interrogator will analyze the backscattered light along the cable. So once the cable was deformed by seismic waves or any other deformations, the backscattered light will change, and we can analyze it to get the strain or strain rate measurement along the cable. So what's the difference between a traditional seismometer and a single DAS channel? The first obvious one is it's measuring in different physical unit. So for seismometer, it's a point on the ground, so it's measuring the particle velocity or acceleration or displacement, the ground motion. For a single DAS channel, it's measuring the average strain or strain rate over a short distance, which we called the gauge length. So for seismometer, we know the dynamic range and the instrument response of it because when we design a seismometer, we know them from manufacturing. But for DAS, for the dynamic range, in principle, we are measuring the optical phase change. So it will be, if it's in phase unit, it will be minus pi to pi. For the instrument response, it's a little bit more complicated because if you assume the cable is coupled perfectly to the ground, then we will have a flat instrument response, except for when the wavelength you are measuring is close to the gauge length. So people usually take another approach. So we, like in this paper, in Qiushi Zhai's paper, they calibrate this instrument response using a collocated seismometer. So we want to add this new type of seismic sensors to the existing seismic networks. And there has been many efforts on this topic. So in my opinion, there are always two aspects for this kind of adding DAS array to the network. So the goals are either for routine monitoring or for earthquake early warning. So for monitoring, we always want a more complete catalog. For example, we want to detect more smaller earthquakes by adding this DAS cable. But for earthquake early warning, we want fast detection, and we care more about moderate to big earthquakes. And because for monitoring, it's operating in near real time, so we can still take some time. We can do human inspection. We can do all the fancy inversions to do the best we can for the location and mechanism. But for earthquake early warning, we want to do a very fast calculation for the earthquakes. We want to be accurate enough to send out an alert. So here, like showing Wei Qiang's paper, he showed by using this DAS cable, you can detect more smaller earthquakes near the cable. And both, I think, Berkeley and Caltech, we are streaming selected channels along the DAS cable to directly integrate them into the current network system. Because if we put all of the channels inside, the workflow directly, it will be too many new stations. So now we are streaming some of the channels for the routine monitoring purpose. But both of these goals, they require you to have more observations near where the earthquakes are. So basically near the active faults. So here, this paper from Amy is showing in the earthquake early warning system, the ShakeAlert system we have in the Mendocino triple junction, we actually have some mislocated earthquakes, offshore earthquakes. And this is just because we don't have a good coverage, station coverage offshore. So by adding a DAS cable, we can not only detecting those earthquakes faster, we can also have more accurate earthquake locations. And this figure on the right is showing you the active faults in the Western US and offshore cable, some of the offshore cables and onshore cables. So if we can use some of them, it can be very beneficial to our network. So now I want to focus on an example inside the Berkeley seismic network. So here, this animation is showing you over the years, we are installing more and more seismometers to monitor, all the fault lines onshore. But in this region, in the Monterey Bay region, we do have a gap. We have some offshore faults. So this DAS cable will fill a gap in the coverage. So here, zoomed into the Monterey Bay region, I plotted all of the fault zones, major fault zones, and the ShakeAlert stations, and also the DAS cable. So you can see here this cable is about 52 kilometers long, extended from surface to around 800-meter water depths. And this project is called Seaform, which means seafloor fiber optic array in Monterey Bay. So I want to emphasize how unique this DAS cable is, because we are in collaboration with the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute. They own this cable for scientific research. So they do periodic cable inspection using this remote operating vehicles. So they will take photos and document the cable's condition every 5 years. So we have a relatively well-documented cable information comparing to many other offshore cables where you don't really know exact conditions. So in this figure, you can kind of see in this photo, you can see the DAS cable on the seafloor, and sometimes you have good coupling, sometimes the cable is just dangling on the seafloor. And here I plotted the power spectral density for different DAS channels along the cable, and it's colored by its water depths. So we can see from the shallow ocean surface gravity waves on the surface to when you go deeper, it's more quieter. You can see the secondary microseisms. And here is a local magnitude 5.1 earthquakes in San Jose. And you can see we recorded very detailed seismic wave field on this cable. So now let's talk about the offshore seismic hazard in this region. So we have this major fault zone, which is called the San Gregorio fault zone. It's offshore in this region. And historically, there has been some paleoseismology study suggesting that there was a magnitude 7+ earthquake happened on this fault. And also some recent studies suggesting if you're connecting the San Gregorio fault all the way to kind of central California, it can have, if it all ruptured at the same time, it can have potential for some big events. And here I'm plotting all of the magnitude 5 plus, I think, historical earthquakes on the map. You can see there are some offshore earthquakes here, and this is a Loma Prieta earthquake. So here I added all of the recent smaller earthquakes to the map. They are the red dots. So this is only from the first year of our experiment. We collected many high signal to noise ratio event, and so far there were until this year we recorded around 20 offshore earthquakes on this fault. So if we think about how to use this DAS array to do earthquake early warning, we need to think about the 3 steps for point source earthquake early warning algorithms. We want to see how to efficiently trigger on the seismic arrivals, and we want to use those arrivals to locate the earthquake, and we want to estimate the magnitude. So for DAS, the challenges are really are it has a large volume of data. For example, our channel has our DAS has more than 10,000 channels. So if you treat each one as an individual station, that's already too many stations. And we have a relatively linear geometry. So it will have some limitation in how well you can locate the earthquake. And for the magnitude piece, because it's recording strain or strain rate, so you cannot directly use the empirical magnitude equations based on ground motion. So for the first part, for the triggering part, we are using a machine learning model called FaceNet DAS. So it's based on the famous FaceNet developed by Weiqiang. So it's basically a modification to the FaceNet. So now the machine learning model, we are taking a 2D input, which is like the waterfall plot you always see for the DAS data, and you treat it as an image, and this machine learning model will give you a continuous P and S peaks as a result. And to mention, this model, the original FaceNet DAS model is trained using online DAS data. So I also did a transfer learning of this FaceNet DAS model. The reason is we know for different DAS arrays, they have very different background noise, and we don't know the exact instrument response. And for different DAS arrays, it may have different configurations. So we want to be able to use this model for the submarine cable. We did a transfer learning using the data from this array. So this is the workflow. You can see that we just use original model on the new data, and we generate some noisy labels. We filter them, and then we use them to train this model. So it's like another iteration of in the immersion process. So in this whole process is semi-supervised, so we don't really need to pick any picks manually. And this is a comparison of the new, we call it SafeForm FaceNet DAS model and the original FaceNet DAS model. So in the upper panels, it's showing in each moving window, the P peaks showing blue and the S peaks showing red. And the lower panels are showing all of the peaks that have been picked from all the moving windows. So you can see that the new model is performing more consistent and less outlier peaks. So for the earthquake location, we use a very standard grid search approach. We pre-calculate the move out curve for each grade, the P wave and the S minus P time based on a 1D velocity model. We also fix the depths at 6.5 kilometers to save some time. And this depth is the typical earthquake depths in that region. And we also use some information from the machine learning model as weights to better stabilize this grid search process. So we use the face score, which is like a quality matrix for each peaks to weight the misfit, and then we convert it into a probability value. So for the magnitude estimation piece, we used the empirical equations developed by Yin Jiuxun, and this equation is showing for P waves. You take the peak strain rate after the P wave. You have a short window. You get the peak strain rate, and then you input the distance and also a calibration term. Then you can estimate the magnitude. This is very similar to what we do for, in the current system based on peak displacement. So in this equation, the K term is a calibration term that accounts for all of the effects we cannot explicitly accounted for. So for example, the coupling and the site amplification. So here I use the same equation, but I calculate the calibration term for my cable. So this is showing x-axis is showing the channel number, and the y-axis is showing the calibration term. And on the right, two plots are showing the P wave result using this newly calibrated equation, and also for S wave. And another thing you can do is we talk about the theoretical dynamic range of DAS. So we know theoretically what the maximal strain rate will be based on the fiber properties and also your configurable parameters when you are interrogating this cable. So we know the maximal phase change will be from -pi to pi. So you can calculate the maximal strain rate you can measure, and then you plug in back to this equation with your calibration term. You can calculate the saturation magnitude for each along your cable. So in this case, our saturation magnitude is much higher than in Qiush's paper. I think this is because I look into the details. The K term we get on this cable is much smaller compared to other cables. So this could be it's an offshore cable, so we have a lot of sediment, and the peak strain rate we get may be from some scattered waves. That's why it's smaller than the typical cable. And here, finally, putting everything together, I'm showing an animation to show a real data example for an offshore magnitude 2.4 earthquake happened near the cable. So on the left, it's showing each moving window, how the machine learning model is picking the P waves and S waves. And in the middle, it's showing the probability from the grid search. The greenish color represent the higher probability. So you can see that, and on the right, it's showing the magnitude evolution during each moving window. You can see we can do a pretty good job at locating this earthquake and estimate the magnitude. So now, I hope I convinced you we have a standalone DAS system that can do a decent detection for earthquakes nearby the cable. But if we really want to use this as, in the operational earthquake early warning system, we have to think, how do we integrate it with existing early warning system, right? In reality, like in the US West Coast, we have ShakeAlert. These are we have a very, very dense on-land seismic network. So how do we add this new DAS cable into this system and still make sure it's consistent, it's smooth, all the process will be smooth? So first, I want to mention ShakeAlert. So ShakeAlert is a USGS operated earthquake early warning system, and it's really a collaboration effort from USGS, Cal-OES, and also many institutes like Berkeley and Caltech. And there are some mean algorithms inside this system: EPIC, Finder, and GFAST. So EPIC is the mean point source algorithms that always, it's very fast. It's designed to have a fast detection. And FINER and GFAST are designed for larger earthquakes. And then we also have a ground motion estimation algorithm. So here I got this slide from Richard and Angie. So this is the ShakeAlert performance over the 6 years of operation. We have sent out 160 true alerts. We have a few false alerts and missed alerts, but they are mostly because of the location of the earthquake. So they are at the edge of our network. So we don't really have a good constraint. And this, this also shows if we have some offshore cables, maybe we can help with these events. And also to mention that dEPIC is doing its job because it has sent out more than 99% of the first alerts in the system. So talking more about dEPIC, so dEPIC is stands for Earthquake Point Source Integrated Code. So it uses STA-LTA for the P arrival peaking, and it uses a grid search for location and a peak displacement for magnitude estimation. So dEPIC need at least 4 stations to issue an alert. This is the requirement, which is very important because we are going to compare this to the DAS system. So now we want to think about how to integrate with dEPIC, integrate the DAS system with dEPIC. So some synergy here, because when we developed the DAS system, we had dEPIC in mind. So the whole process is very similar, except for the seismic phase peaking part. So dEPIC is using STA-LTA, but we are using a machine learning model. And for the location and magnitude estimation, it's all very similar. And like I said multiple times, dEPIC struggles a little bit with out of the network events, especially in the offshore regions like in Mendocino. But if we can have access to offshore cables, that can really enhance monitoring in these specific regions. Some of the challenges, again, DAS data has a large volume and it's noisier. And we know if you use DAS array to locate earthquakes, the accuracy will decrease rapidly with increasing distance from the DAS array. Because in principle, the DAS array is just a very dense cluster of seismic sensors. So for the first 2 challenges, we already solved it in the example I showed you. So we have optimized our algorithms to be very efficient. We can handle the large volume of DAS data. We are using the whole array, the whole 10,000 array. We are using the machine learning model on the GPU to process all of the data. And we also moved the grid search part onto the GPU to make it faster. So now all of this can be done under 1 second, which means we can have a 1 second update rate. So for the location accuracy piece, I really want to point it out using this figure. So the example I showed are for this offshore earthquakes. So of course, we don't have seismometers nearby, so the DAS will be the first one to detect them. But for events like near the Loma Prieta region, right? So if an event happened here, both the DAS and some stations will detect this event. So this is when it's important to make sure we have a communication between the stations and the DAS algorithms so we can do a joint location. And for further away earthquakes, like on the St. Andreas fault here, it's a very active region. If an earthquake happened here, the nearby stations will detect it much, much earlier than the DAS array. So that's why we also need a communication between the DAS and the stations. Otherwise, when the P waves reaches the DAS cable, the DAS cable will also try to use that limited information to locate this earthquake. But because of the linear geometry of DAS, it will be very hard. It can even create local false alerts near the DAS cable. So get into more details of this workflow. So we have shown that the standalone DAS algorithms can provide a decent detection for the events near the cable. And all of this module are designed to can be deployed as in an edge computing fashion, which means we can do all of this processing on a local server near the DAS interrogator. And since it will struggle with relatively far away event, we have to talk to the stations. So we established a pathway to listen to the dEPIC algorithm. So dEPIC is running all the time on the seismic networks. And once it produced an dEPIC event, we will listen to the event and we will try to associate it with the peaks on the DAS cable. So if there is an event that also in the same time we have some peaks on the DAS cable, if it's being associated, we will do a joint location to ensure consistent detection. And then now this is the whole workflow. So this integrated dEPIC is actually running in real time, and we have a 1-second update rate, and we will continuously listen to the dEPIC messages and doing the association. So now the dEPIC module is outputting the dEPIC event messages, and in the future we can push them into the decision module in the ShakeAlert to actually make this consistent. So, okay, here I want to show you an example for applying this dEPIC workflow. So this is a real offshore magnitude 2 event showing as the red star here. So the first figure shows after 5.1 seconds after the earthquake origin time, a part of the cable detected the P wave from this earthquake. But because of this limitation of the linear geometry, the location result is pretty bad. We cannot locate earthquakes very well, but we have a mechanism to reject this kind of solutions, which I will talk about later. And then at 7.1 second, 8.1 seconds, you can see we are doing a pretty decent job detecting this earthquake. And only at 10 seconds after this earthquake happened, the first dEPIC messages kicked in. So like I mentioned before, dEPIC needs at least 4 stations to issue an alert to create an event. So in this case, at 10 seconds, these 4 stations near the Monterey Bay detected the P waves from this earthquake and is able to create an dEPIC event. And the dEPIC module is successfully associating this event to the DAS peaks. So here, the result shown here is actually the joint location result using both the stations and the DAS cable. So you can see that it's very consistent and a smooth transition. And also to point it out, for this offshore event, we have around 3 seconds earlier detection comparing to the dEPIC, only the station-based dEPIC. So now I want to talk more about how did we reject this solution, this kind of bad solution. So we developed something called a location matrix. So this basically is some matrix you calculate based on the probability distribution in your grid search. So the first one is called the prominence score. So it's basically a measurement of how concentrated your probability distribution is. So it's calculating the maximal, the peak in your probability map with the surrounding area. And the second one is called a distribution score. It's calculating the geometric center of your high probability region to the peak location. So if you have a large area with high probabilities, this score will be low. And then use these two very simple matrix. We can set some thresholds to filter out the bad solutions. So in this case, you can see we have this dashed line as the threshold, and we filtered out the first solution, which has a very huge location error. And here we have, so now we have the complete dEPIC framework, and we applied it to all of the magnitude 3.5 plus earthquakes recorded in the past 3 years in this region, and all of the offshore magnitude 2 plus earthquakes in this region. So you can see on this plot is showing the first accepted dEPIC solution. So on the left, it's showing the USGS catalog location and magnitude in blue, and the dEPIC, the first dEPIC detection in orange. And they are connected using an arrow. So you can see that we're doing a pretty good job at locating all of them at the very first accepted location. And on the right, it's showing when did all of this first detection happen, how much time after the origin. And here we are showing the peak accepted dEPIC solution. So basically, this is the maximal, when you have the maximal magnitude estimation for each event. And you can see here we are doing a pretty good job at both the location and the magnitude estimation. And on the right is again showing the time. And we also want to show how does this dEPIC system perform in a continuous data replay situation. So here I picked one day in February this year when there was an earthquake sequence happened on the San Andreas Fault. So it's basically this part on the map. So we have a lot of magnitude 3-ish earthquakes in the same day. So this is how the dEPIC performs. So this plot, the horizontal axis is showing the time during the day, and the vertical axis is the magnitude. So each blue dot is one catalog event with its magnitude and time. So, and every orange dot is a dEPIC detection. So you can see that we detected most of the 3+ earthquakes. And for the smaller earthquakes, because it's pretty far away and the system didn't pass the threshold. And also you can see there were some red crosses here. So these are the events that were rejected by the location matrix. You can see them corresponding pretty well to the location arrow. So the purple dots are showing the location arrow for each event. So you can see we use this location matrix to successfully rejected those events with a high location arrow. And also we did some tests to learn more about the trade-off using this two location matrix. So we know you can think that if you set a very strict threshold for both matrix, of course your solutions will be very good, but then you sacrifice the alert time. So here we want to find the balance between a low location arrow and also a relatively long additional warning time. So these two figures are just showing for location arrow, different combination of the two matrix, location matrix threshold and the corresponding location arrow for the 20-something earthquakes I have shown in the replay. So here you want to be in kind of the yellow region where you have low location arrow and high and low alert delay. And the red cross is the current threshold we are using, So we are roughly at the right place, but it's still a little bit conservative, but we will change it accordingly in the real-time operation. And here it's very exciting because it's real-time performance. So this system went online, I think, in September. So we have gathered many real-time logs. So these results are directly from the real-time logs. So here it's on the left, it's showing again a day, and there was a magnitude around 3.2 earthquakes here, and we were able to detect it very well. And there was an earthquake we also detected, actually with a pretty good location accuracy, but it was rejected because we are using a pretty conservative threshold for the location matrix. And here on the right, it's a pretty interesting day. We had two teleseismic events, which are magnitude 7+ event. I think one of them is from Malaysia, the other one is from Drake Passage, I think, and on the same day. So you can see that we didn't really, they didn't really trigger the system. So these rejected solutions are actually before this dashed line. These dashed lines represent the time when the teleseismic event happened. So we don't really have any false triggers because of the teleseismic event. Because in the DAS system, we don't really have a mechanism to prevent triggering from teleseismic waves. But in EPIC, we have many, the teleseismic filters and other mechanisms to do it. But it's kind of interesting to see, even if we don't have a special mechanism, we didn't trigger on that. This could be because we are using the machine learning to trigger on seismic arrivals, and the machine learning model was only trained using local earthquakes. So the low frequency signal from teleseismic event didn't trigger the machine learning model. This could be a disadvantage if you want to detect everything, but it actually became an advantage for our application. So now, after I described the dEPIC, I still want to kind of show people how much value you can add to the seismic network, to the early warning system by adding this cable into the network. So sorry for this default Python color map, but it's basically showing at each grade on the map what's the time for an earthquake happen there for the P wave to reach the 4 ShakeAlert stations, because EPIC need at least 4 stations to issue an alert. And here we don't consider any latency, we don't consider any processing time. So this is the fastest possible time for EPIC to detect an event. And here we can estimate a sensitivity for the DAS for earthquake location. So this map is basically showing you a time-dependent sensitivity. Like if an earthquake happened 5 seconds ago, where we will be confident using this DAS array to locate them. So of course, you are more confident if an earthquake happened near the cable. So if we combine these two calculation and we set a threshold, a location error threshold to estimate when the dEPIC can detect an earthquake, and then we combine them together, we can get an estimation like this. So this is basically the additional warning time when you add this DAS cable to the array. So this is the additional warning time comparing to the standalone DAS array to the fastest EPIC scenario. So for the EPIC, it will be the same. And you can see we will get additional warning time up to 6 seconds on the same Gregorio fault. And this calculation is completely based on DAS and station geometry. And coming back to Mendocino, there were many cables there, but it's hard to have access to them. So here I just put a hypothetical cable a straight line here, offshore Mendocino. And you can see I did the same calculation for the additional warning time. You can see by adding this cable, we can get a lot of additional warning time for offshore earthquakes. So in this scenario, dEPIC could improve ShakeAlert a lot. So I'm going pretty fast, but the takeaway is we developed this DAS early warning algorithms. It consists of a machine learning model for the phase peaking, and we have optimized algorithms to have very fast peaking and location part, and the local calibration is very essential for the magnitude estimation. And very exciting, dEPIC is in operation. We are actually running this in real time, and we are gathering very important real-time lessons, because you will always encounter many outage and things you didn't think of when it's in real time. And as a student, I'm really, really excited to see something you do as research for your PhD can be actually running in real time. And I think with that, I will stop here and take questions. Thank you.